Hi everyone, TJ Mac Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here, and in today's video I'm going to be emphasizing both the vintage cards and the nostalgia as I talk about our first Little League experiences. And I would hope that some folks will share their first experiences in the comments because I'd be interested to hear about them. But anyway, my first experience in Little League, I was 7 years old. It was 1981, and back then, just as today, if your kids are involved in Little League, you typically get your team assignment, and they'll tell you who your coach is and give you your team name. And I found out that I was on the Expos back then, and I just remember being so disappointed that that was my team because I didn't really know a lot about the Expos. I knew who Gary Carter was probably, but not a team I was that familiar with. I wanted to play for the Yankees, just like my favorite player, Reggie Jackson, or the Dodgers, because of Steve Garvey, or even the Royals with George Brett, and especially the Pirates would have been good with the Cobra, Dave Parker. Those were the guys that I was really enamored with at the time, and I was disappointed. And also my dad played for the Yankees in Little League. I saw a picture of him that he showed me when I was a little kid, back from like 1961 or 62 when he played for the Yankees in Little League. So that's what I wanted to do. But anyways, such is life. So I showed up, and I got to meet the coach that day, and I'm going to show some cards that kind of remind me of some of the coaches from that time in Little League that I think those who grew up in the late 70s, early 80s would appreciate some of these cards. The 77 Topps Bill Grief, and he had an airbrushed hat on here with the Expos, and he just reminds me of my first Expos coach kind of, except he's a little thinner than him. But he had all that hair coming out of the back of his hat, the long sideburns, Fu Manchu mustache, and just kind of reminds me of, like I said, my coach a little bit. And then you have coaches that kind of look like this guy here. I grew up in a blue-collar factory area, so this guy looks like he drives a truck for a living. He's got that big hat on with those giant glasses and the long sideburns there. Reminds me of some of the coaches back in the day. Then you have the more buttoned-up type coach here in this Chris Knapp card. He's got the giant collar. I don't think the collars were quite that big in fashion. I know the White Sox wore those weird-looking uniforms back in the late 70s there. But you got those square glasses, very buttoned-up, serious look on him. And then you have Dennis Lamp here. Kind of looks like one of my friend's dads with a long mustache, kind of the burly appearance. There's another one, Rick Camp. And then I grew up in an area with a lot of like second and third generation Italians. And this guy kind of looks like that type of coach, this Rick Camp with the salt and pepper hair and the mustache. A lot of mustaches back in that era, and the long hair. So it just brings back memories when I see these types of cards back to the coaches of that time. I remember them, they usually wear like the blue Wrangler jeans that were like no stonewash back then. It's just a fun era to remember back to. Now, I'm not here today to talk about my exploits as a player in Little League. I'm sure you would love to hear that, just like I love to hear everybody else brag on themselves. I was not a very good player. I'll just leave it at that, but I enjoyed playing and did the best I could and tried to be a good teammate. But one of the things that really got me motivated to do this video is I was doing some work around the house, and I had a documentary on that was on the MLB network on the Expos, and it talked about the history of their team, and especially this 81 season where they went to the National League Championship Series. And in 81, it was a strike-shortened season, if you remember that, and they would allow the division winner from the first half of the season before the strike, and then the division winner in the second half of the season after the strike go to the playoffs. So you'd have 4 teams from each league. So the Expos that year won the division in the second half, and they ended up going to the a divisional series against the Phillies, and they beat them in 5 games. And they had a good team back then. I was when I was listening to the documentary, it just seemed like such a fun time. I really wish as a kid I was more engaged with the season at that time and that team, but it was a little harder to be because we didn't have the internet or Sports Center and things like that. But the stadium that they played in Montreal was Olympic Stadium, and it was just a massive concrete monstrosity. Some said it looked like a spaceship, others said it looked like a toilet bowl, and it was just a really cool atmosphere, though. You know, hearing 30,000 fans screaming it at every game, singing a song that they had what they call a German Oompa band there, and even though this is a French-speaking primarily city, French and English, they had this German Oompa band playing the Happy Wanderer during the games, and that song goes Valderie, Valdera, and they have 30,000 people singing this song during the games, and you'd have vendors calling out in French and English, and it was just a really exciting time that year. And, the core of the team was, of course, Andre Dawson, who was usually the third hitter on the team. Gary Carter, who batted cleanup, and he had the leadoff hitter, and Tim Raines. But they also had the closer, Woody Fryman, who was pretty much in his early 40s at that time. But he had a really nice year that year with an under 2 ERA. Their ace pitcher was Steve Rogers, who won 12 games that year. They had Bill Spaceman Lee, who was he was a spot starter and also a reliever. And then Scott Sanderson was their second starter. They had Bill Gullickson. They had some other good players in that team. And two of their other good hitters, and these cards kind of look very similar. You have Warren Cromartie. He looks like a horseshoe there, the way he's got his legs so far spread apart. He's a good average hitter, had decent power, played first base. And then you had Rodney Scott, who was the second baseman. He batted second after Tim Raines. He was a good base stealer on the team, pretty good average hitter as well. Just a nice number 2 hitter to have on your team. So it was just a fun team, had a great atmosphere at the time, and I really wish I would have been able to have the opportunity to be more engaged, because I think I would have appreciated the Expos more. I certainly appreciate being on that team looking back. And it's just that was just the fun of being in Little League in that time, is where you can wear, actual Major League teams hat, and we got to wear the Expo hats just like the ones we saw here. Certainly we didn't have these nice uniforms of the day, but we wore red T-shirts and usually jeans or sweatpants at the games. We didn't have baseball pants at that young a level. That wasn't until you got older where I lived. It's just a cool experience, but I'm hoping you could share your first Little League experience with me in the comments. Just something I'm curious to hear, and just the good times I had back then, after the game, getting ice creams and ripping open packs of cards. I'm sure I ripped open plenty of 81 Topps back then as well. So now I'm going to break away here and to show off some of the cards in my collection of Gary Carter and the Hawk Andre Dawson. I'm going to show the run of Gary Carter's cards with the Expos with Topps from 1975 to 1985. So here you have a 75 Topps rookie. And then next to that is his second year 1976 Topps. One of his great cards, I think, with the rookie cup and him there in mid-swing pose shot. And I've talked about how much I like the colors on this set and how they match the uniforms. I think it's a pretty underrated set. The photography's good on it, and it's got some nice color touches as well. And then the 77's a nice card. I really always liked that all-white Expos uniform with the logo there. And you can see Carter has number 8 on at that point. And he's wearing, looks like, I don't know, that's 57 or whatever number that is on his uniform there, because it looks like a 7 with another number peeking out. And then has the catcher's mitt on that card as well, which I like. Just a few nice cards here of his. And then I'm going to show now the 78 to 80. Two great catcher shots here in the 78 and 80. And then the 79 has the batting pose. All three do have the Expos helmets on as well. It's when the catchers wore helmets back in those days. I like there that he's got the ball in his mitt. He's holding it up there. Just a card that I know people are aware of it. A lot of people are, but it's not as one is talked often enough about being a great catcher card. I really like that one. Here we have the 81, 82, and 83. And I always liked on the Expos uniforms, and they would do that some of the teams back then. They have the striping going all the way down there like that. Very sharp, very clean lines on it. I'm a pretty much a neat freak, so I kind of like the uniforms that are very tailored and sharp looking. And that's one of my favorites, are the ones that would do that back in the day. Great cards of his, though. Now I'm going to show the 84 and 85. I love the 84 with the dust kicking up there. You can see him running. You can just feel the action on that shot of him going underneath to catch a foul ball. But I think this 85 card is so sharp with the Expos there, the placard there, and then you got the logo, seeing it 3 times on the card. And he's got that white jersey on with the blue and red striping on it. That's a great looking card. That's one I've never really looked at closely, but wow, I think it's very, very attractive and just a great use of color there. Don't have as many Tim Raines cards. I have the 81 and 82 at this point. When I was building these key card runs back, a lot of these were 10 and 15 years ago and even more. I didn't have Raines cards because he wasn't in the Hall of Fame at the time, and I didn't really appreciate his career as much as I do now, so I've been adding cards here and there. So here's an SGC 8 that I picked up for $10 with free shipping. So I'll share the prices sometimes when it drives home a point. And $10 is a good price, I think, for this card. And it's got that beautiful striping. You can see it great on that shot there of him. Wonderful looking card. Here's my Andre Dawson cards. I'm going to show up to 85. I have the 86 and 87 with him on the Expos. I just didn't pull them out. But here's the 77 to 79. Nice rookie card of his. And I do like the 78 a lot with the yellow. Goes nice with the rookie cup. And he just looks so mean in that picture. He was a very serious-looking man, the Hawk. And then he got next to him the 79 tops. Here's 80 to 82 tops. And again, the striping there, it's just where the way his waist is turned, you can't see it as well on the top of his jersey. But again, very sharp card. Like the pose on the 82 with the helmet. 83, 84, and 85. Wish the 84 was a little more vibrant. The picture looks a little washed out. Just the way they took the photograph there. But the 83 is a sharp card. And there's the Hawk. I'm going to end here with this newsstand edition of the Sports Illustrated from August 17th, 1981. That would have been right during my Little League season. After I listened to that video documentary, I'm starting to get more into Sports Illustrated, the newsstand issues, because I think they're very appreciated, and I think they're going to be more and more collectible in the future, and I just want to have them in my collection. I'm going to do a video on that pretty soon. I've been reaching out to another channel in the community. A gentleman's name is Brad. I'll put a link down to his video when I do that video in the future. He's into Sports Illustrated. I've been learning a lot from his channel, and it's just something I want to get more and more into. And I just love having this cover because it's right during that Little League season of mine, during that 81 Expo season. And the newsstand editions of Sports Illustrated, like I said, are something that's becoming more and more collectible. And a lot of them aren't really that expensive, so I've been picking some up here and there. So I'm just going to match that up there with the 81 tops, Gary Carter. Just makes for a great shot seeing those two together. So that's all I have for today. I really appreciate everybody's time. And please, like I said, share those Little League experiences. Always appreciate the comments. And everybody have a great weekend.